James worked in an Amazon warehouse, surrounded by the constant sounds of lifting, scanning, and moving heavy boxes. He was different from the others, punctual, hardworking, and always well-groomed despite the casual nature of the job. Unlike most of his co-workers, who paid little attention to their appearance, James stood out. He smelled good, dressed neatly, and carried himself with quiet dignity. He lived alone, an orphan with no family to lean on. Every paycheck went toward keeping himself afloat, paying bills, affording necessities, and securing a life that no one else would provide for him. Among the managers was Lova, a woman who noticed James more than she should. At first, it was admiration for his dedication, but over time, something deeper grew within her. She found excuses to talk to him, subtly offering him extra shifts or stationing him closer to her office.
James, could you take care of this, please?
She would ask, her voice softer than it was with the others.
James, would you mind switching stations?
James never hesitated. He did everything asked of him, never complaining, always polite. Then, one day, he was gone. A week passed. Lova noticed his absence like a missing heartbeat. She grew distant, quieter, and it didn't go unnoticed. "What's wrong with you lately?" another manager asked. "Nothing," she lied. But inside, her thoughts tormented her. Why didn't I tell him? Why didn't I take my chance? Lova made a silent promise: if life gave her another opportunity, she wouldn't waste it. Even if it meant breaking the rules, even if it risked her job. Then, suddenly, James was back. Lova spotted him across the warehouse floor and felt her heart lurch. Without thinking, she rushed to him.
James, where have you been?
The words came out too fast, too desperate. She didn't even greet him properly. James blinked at her sudden intensity.
Good morning, Lova. How are you?
"I'm great," she said quickly, then realized her mistake.
Sorry, good morning. But seriously, where have you been? Did you go on vacation with your girlfriend?
She threw the question in as a trap, to see if he was single, to find a way to confess how she felt. James chuckled, nodded, and said, "Yeah." Just like that, her world cracked. Lova felt the answer like a knife to the chest. Her stomach twisted, her heart clenched, but she masked it with a tight smile. From that moment, everything changed. Lova became distant, no longer the kind manager who subtly favored him. Instead, she made his job harder.
James, lift those heavy packages. Move that stack to the other side of the warehouse.
She stopped saying please. Stopped calling him James in that soft way. Instead, it was sir, cold, distant, punishing. James, ever patient, never argued. He did as told, even as his body grew weaker. What Lova didn't know was that James had been sick. That was the real reason for his absence. But he never told her, and he mistook her bitterness for mere workplace authority. One day, Lova pointed at a massive box. "Move that, sir." James hesitated.
I can't lift that by myself. I need help.
Everyone's busy. Do it yourself.
James exhaled. "Then I'd rather go home than push my body too far." They argued. Other managers gathered around. "He's just pretending to be sick," Lova snapped. "He just came back from a vacation." James stayed silent. Then, the big boss arrived.
"James, you have two choices. Move the box or you're fired."
James thought of his bills. His empty apartment. His lack of a safety net. Tears welled in his eyes, but he swallowed them down and whispered, "I'll do it." He fought through the pain, forcing his body beyond its limits. He moved the box. That night, James went home exhausted. The next day, he didn't show up for work. A week passed. Then 2. Then 3. Lova grew restless. She asked his usual work friends where he was. Carl, a coworker, hesitated before answering. James is in the hospital. He collapsed after his shift that day. Lova's breath caught. A wave of guilt slammed into her. That night, she cried herself to sleep, realizing the weight of what she had done. She had let her pain turn into cruelty. Every few days, she checked on James through Carl. Until one day, she saw Carl at work and rushed to him. "How is James?" she asked, almost breathless. Carl looked at her, his eyes dark with sorrow. "Lova," he said quietly. "James passed away. Yesterday." The words struck like lightning. Lova staggered back, her vision blurred, the warehouse spinning around her. Then everything went dark. When she woke up, she was on the warehouse floor, surrounded by concerned faces. But none of it mattered. The one person she had secretly loved was gone. And everyone finally realized, too late, that Lova had fallen in love with James.